I'm Hadriatus, Armchair General, and today we're going to be flying high as well as crashing and burning in Forge World's Aeronautica Imperialis, a spin-off game, one of many, based on Games Workshop's main miniature line, Warhammer 40,000. What's Forge World, you may ask?
Forge World is a subsidiary company of Games Workshop, which designs, molds, and sells resin miniatures for Games Workshop games. Mostly 40k.
And in January 2007, they released their own game, Aeronautica, which uses the same miniatures that they developed for Epic Armageddon. Well, that's enough of the background info. On to the review. The setting is the same as Warhammer 40,000, and I'm not going to go into a full explanation because to go into any amount of detail about that setting would take far more time than you're willing to sit there and listen to me. So instead, here's the little preface from every single 40k novel ever to give you a little grounding on the universe if you're not already familiar with it.
It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die. Yet even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battlefields cross the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars. Their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest among his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name only a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim, dark future there is only war. There is no peace among the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Enough of a basic premise for you? If not, here's a shorthand version. The future sucks. Humanity is heavily dependent on a fascist system of government just to survive. Innovation and progress is looked down upon and even punishable by death in some cases. And xenophobia is healthy and good for you, since pretty much everything else in the galaxy is trying to wipe out humanity. Now, you don't get any description of the setting at all in the book itself. This is probably due to it being a spin-off and sort of aimed at more veteran 40k players. Instead, you get technical details on each of the planes featured in the book, which is actually pretty interesting, but in a sort of, it's good to see the hardware and sort of the details in that. Of course, the book itself, charts are... here's the main factions on offer in the book. We have the Imperial Navy and the Space Marines, both representing the Imperium. So that's regular aerospace fighters, heavy transports, assault transports, those sort of things. We also have 3 alien factions: the Eldar, the Orcs, and the Tau, as well as corrupted humans, the Chaos Raiders. First things first, this game utilizes an integrated turn sequence, but only partially. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look at the breakdown of a turn for more detail. At the start of each turn, both players note down what maneuver each of their planes is going to perform, and keep those secret from each other. There are 10 maneuvers on offer, each represented by a different card.
The book comes with 2 packs of these, one for each player. The cards are divided into 3 categories, which are shared with aircraft. These are low, high, and very high. Most bombers are of low maneuverability, and so can only use cards with the low keyword on them.
Whereas most fighters are high, and a select few are very high. Of course, you can use cards with a maneuver rating lower than your own, because makes sense, doesn't it? And next, both players roll initiative. It's a straight dice roll comparing each other's results. The player who rolls highest gets to choose one of their planes and move them according to the maneuver card they picked out for it.
Before moving as according to the card, the plane may alter its speed according to its thrust stat. Planes have a maximum and minimum speed, which means that at the end of the turn, if a plane is moving faster than it can, it merely remains at top speed. But if it's moving slower than minimum speed, then it crashes and is removed from play. The distance a plane can move in inches is twice its current speed. The speed ranges from 0 to 9. Each maneuver card also allows you to change your speed and your altitude during your maneuver. This means that a common trick is to slow below one's minimum speed and then dive to end with your speed above the minimum requirement. Most aircraft also have a maximum altitude which they cannot exceed under any circumstances. Altitude ranges from 0 to 9, just as speed. Of course, any plane that hits altitude 0 crashes unless it is attempting to land.
So after both players have moved all their planes, we move on to the shooting phase. The player that won initiative chooses one of his planes to fire first, and then their opponent does the same. This alternates until all aircraft have fired, pretty much the same way as the movement phase. Planes can only fire at other planes that are at the same altitude, or one higher or one lower. This is in addition to limitations for fire arcs and range. Now, depending on the distance between the shooting plane and the target, a number of dice is rolled. There are 3 ranges: short, medium, and long.
So, for example, if a Thunderbolt fighter was shooting at a Chaos Hell Talon, which was 7 inches away, it would be able to roll 6 dice when attacking with its autocannons, but if the Talon is 5 inches away, it would only roll 4. Each aircraft has a stat card listing the different amounts of dice you roll depending on range per weapon. You need to roll a 5 or more to hit per dice, if you and the target are on the same altitude, and a 6 if there is a difference of 1 between your altitudes. Once your plane has fired, the opponent gets to fire one of their planes before you choose another, and so on until all planes have fired their weapons. After this, a new turn begins.
Of course, the main problem with firing is that all your weapons have limited ammunition. Autocannons, for example, can only fire 4 times in the entire game. And there's no way to rearm, in the official rules at least. What this means is that you'll either basically spend most of the game trying to get into the perfect position to down the enemy, which is how air combat should be, or more likely, waste your shots at every single chance you get to down them, and basically once you're out of ammo, fly your plane off the table to deny your opponent a chance of shooting it down. I really don't like the ammo rule, especially on the main weapons. I mean, for secondaries such as bombs and rockets, fair enough, but in all the games I've played, we've tended to disregard the ammunition rule. Yes, you lose some of the feeling of proper air combat, but we're trying to have fun here and not simulate reality. If we wanted that, there's any number of combat flight sims we could play.
Moving on, the game also includes AA defenses, which can fire up to different altitudes depending on the type of weapon. Flat guns can hit anything up to altitude 6, while squad machine cannons only reach altitude 3.
So, there's a brief overview of the rules. I've skipped over bombing runs, ace pilots, strafing runs, the way scenery can interact with airplanes if you choose, and the campaign rules. As always, I leave that for you to discover if this game seems like your bag of tricks. Now, onto the miniatures. As a Forge World developed game, it goes without saying that the miniatures are really nice. Of course, them being from Forge World also means that the main GW side has a cheaper variant of them, which, if you're strapped for cash, I would hardly recommend looking into.
Though, to be honest, in this hobby, you get what you pay for. Sure, you can shop around for a bargain, but if you want highly detailed resin models, it's going to cost you. Now, to be honest, a lot of the designs are just scaled-down versions of specialist models released for 40k by Forge World already, though they're such good replicas it's astounding at times, like the landing gear on the Thunderhawks.
Of course, being resin models means that there's some preparation to do before you can start gluing and painting them, like washing them in warm soapy water to get rid of the release agent from the mold. But then again, that is standard procedure when modeling with any resin miniatures. So then, a quick summary. A game that can be played in a more arcade or simulation style depending on your preference, one with great miniatures, and relatively simple rules. However, the lack of variety for some factions, like the Orcs and the Chaos, who only have like 2 planes available, really limits your options in planning games or having larger games with them. There was an expansion for this game, but soon after that, this game was discontinued by Forge World. It's still readily available, but there just won't be any official new releases for it. Maybe if enough people show interest, they may reconsider relaunching it. But for now, it's just one of the many GW spin-offs that needs more attention.